More often than not, even as the storyteller who does as thorough of a job researching as I possibly could, I still find myself asking questions about these cases because it just doesn't make sense to me sometimes why things happen the way that they do. Why and how can people be so evil? And was a situation ever that serious to where it had to lead to the loss of someone's life? And this story is no different. As I ask questions such as why? What happened? What was the reason or the motive? Couldn't it have been handled differently? This is the story of Ronald Thomas. According to reports, Ronald, or Ron, was a Bronx, New York native, and based on what I can see on not only on his social media, but just from what others have said about him too, it appeared that he was a go-getter. He seemed to have had that natural New York hustle mentality and applied it to his life, remaining focused on leveling up, getting to the money, made sure he stayed fly, had a nice car, enjoyed traveling, and spoiling his lady, a young woman who goes by Princess Stoney. I would say Princess Stoney is quite notable in the beauty industry, especially here in New York City, but she's made a name for herself beyond this town as a businesswoman doing hair, selling hair. She had her own shop at one point, although I'm not sure if she still has the shop, but she definitely had her own. She hired a makeup artist who worked beside her for clientele, and she's had a couple of heavy hitters as clientele, such as R&B singer Ashanti and rapper Lil' Kim. Stoney also has been hosting her own networking events and helping other young women learn how to be entrepreneurs in the beauty industry for at least 10 years now, if not more. She's also been on a couple reality shows with Zeus as a reality rising star, so you can see how she and Ron were attracted to each other. They both got to it. The two of them would travel together. He was very active in her daughter's life, and I'm not sure if that was their child together or if Ron had any children at all, but he was definitely present for Stoney's baby girl. And you could say they had the whole power couple thing going on for sure. But of course, no couple is perfect. Each relationship has its flaws, its ups, its downs, as did Ron and Stoney's, who would get into arguments and do the make up the breakup thing from time to time. And so it was Sunday, May 1st, 2022, just after 12 p.m. Ron and Stoney are outside on the Upper West Side in a cul-de-sac on West 102nd Street near Amsterdam Avenue. The couple is in another one of their arguments, having a heated exchange while standing outside of Ron's vehicle, a white Mercedes-Benz GLA 250. People are walking by and they see the couple arguing, but they just chalk it up to seeing the norm and keep it moving. Ron goes back inside of his vehicle and Stoney begins to walk off towards the back of the vehicle. In this moment, a car pulls up to 27-year-old Ron's vehicle and begins shooting into the car, hitting Ron in his head in broad daylight, just some feet away from a playground and soccer field outside of Frederick Douglass houses, not too far from the 24th precinct. As police arrived at the scene, of course, the suspect had already fled and Ron was unfortunately dead on arrival. People in the neighborhood said all they saw was the argument between Ron and Stoney and heard at least 5 to 6 gunshots, but that's all the information they knew. NYPD began their investigations to find out who could have done this to Ron and also, just as importantly, the motive behind his death.
Tell us the man was shot following a dispute. Possibly that dispute was over a woman. And this comes a day after the mayor held a big meeting with police leaders about combating rising crime.
When is this going to stop? When's somebody going to do something?
An emotional embrace steps away from a crime scene at the end of West 102nd Street near Amsterdam Avenue. Inside the white Mercedes SUV with shattered windows is where police say 27-year-old Ronald Thomas of Glen Allen, Virginia, was found lifeless after being shot in the head. Neighbors at NYC's Frederick Douglass houses say they heard 5 to 6 gunshots around noon.
They from out of town. It was a spat, an argument, and then somebody came and shot him. That's all I know.
They don't know how to have a dispute without killing somebody. Life is not valued anymore. So yeah, I don't feel as safe as I used to, and I've lived here for 22 years.
The killing happened steps from a playground, a soccer field, and about a block from the 24th Police Precinct.
There are always children here. I am worried because things are happening all over the city.
The fatal gunfire comes one day after Mayor Eric Adams met with commanding officers from all 77 police precincts to discuss the summer violence reduction plan to fight shootings. Starting Sunday, every borough began having a violence reduction coordinator so they can deploy cops and resources faster. And in 40 precincts citywide, the plan was to add more officers and modify shifts to start 3 hours earlier.
Stoney was understandably belligerent. She was outside of her body, crying in agony as she watched the love of her life lose his life right before her very eyes. Now, unfortunately, people began spreading very nasty rumors and was placing the blame of Ron's death onto Stoney and accused her of setting him up. Now, I do realize you can't put nothing past nobody, which I actually live by that rhetoric. However, when you just know something for a fact and it could be proven, then you're not about to easily believe some bullshit when it sounds like bullshit. And to know of Stoney and Ron is to know that it wasn't no way she would ever have been capable of doing such a thing. Stoney was crazy about Ron. Like, she loved him down, and it took nothing for her to be ruled out, which she was, and it was proven she did not set him up. So, there's really no need to continue down that rabbit hole of falsities and rumors, but yeah, it was definitely a buzz in the streets about that. And because of that, Stoney naturally retreated from the public for a while before she had to find a way to have some kind of normalcy in her life again, whatever that meant for her at that time. So a few months had gone by after Ron's death, and in August of 2022, according to reports, following a thorough investigation, police made an arrest in the shooting death of Ronald Thomas. 24-year-old Donta King, who was reported to be a resident of a building on West 100th Street in Amsterdam, was arrested and charged with homicide, assault, reckless endangerment, and criminal use of a firearm. This came days after a warrant was put out for his arrest, sparking a manhunt and leading to his discovery. According to the New York Post, Donta got snatched up in Wilkes-Barre Township, Pennsylvania, and was transported back to Manhattan by the Regional Fugitive Task Force. Unfortunately, I could not find any motives as to why Donta committed this crime or what could have led up to it in any of my research, and I also was unsuccessful in retrieving a photo of Donta King. As of today, as far as I know, Stoney is still being an amazing mom to her daughter. She's still a boss. She's still building her empire as she continues to mourn the death of her lost love and struggle with the day-to-day motions that comes with dealing with both life and death. Just a couple months before his death, Ronald had made a post on Facebook talking about how he had just moved into his new place, and it was reported that he had moved to Glen Allen, Virginia, and only was in the city to visit some relatives. So, it's real messed up that he couldn't even enjoy his new humble abode for long before his life was taken. Never even made it to see 30 years. And Donta is still currently incarcerated at Rikers Island. His next court date is on July 25th of this year. It's crazy because I remember when this happened, and I remember being shocked, especially when I realized who it was that got shot and his life was taken, because I knew that was Stoney's man. It was crazy to know that because I remember years ago, long before I ever thought about being a true crime content creator, I used to tune into Stoney's story times here on YouTube. It was myself and another girl that I was cool with. We used to watch and we used to talk about it because the girl I was cool with, she had got her hair done by Stoney, and she told me Stoney was on this platform, and she would tell crazy stories and stuff, and she would say how Stoney's persona on the platform is the exact same in person. So we used to just, laugh and kiki about it, and, we followed her on social media, and I really was drawn to her because she's such a hustler, and she was such a boss even back then. And if you followed Stoney, then you knew how she was coming about Ron, you know, and vice versa, how he was stepping for her. And like I said before, they would go through their ups and downs like any other couple, but that's why, you know, that was so corny for people to try to put that jacket on her and say that she set him up just because they got into an argument. Folks argue, you know what I mean? So anyway, it was just wild when I heard about it. And I remember it being that very day, and I was like, damn, how did they even catch him like that? And then so early in the day like that. I know nobody expected that to happen to him. And I just thought to do this story just, you know, as a fellow New Yorker, and to keep his name alive. And who knows, maybe someone could add to the motive piece of it and even add on to more of who Ron was as a person, because I really only saw good things about him in my research of this story. A lot of people were deeply affected by his death. Of course, his family members, his friends, you know, everybody. And I think outside of Ron's death, one of the most devastating parts of the story is how his brother took it when he heard about Ron's death. His brother actually went into cardiac arrest and was in critical condition after he heard about it. I'm not sure where his brother is now or what condition he is in now, but I pray that he's doing much better physically, and certainly praying over his emotional and mental health, as I do for everyone else involved. I know firsthand what it is to lose a sibling, let alone losing a sibling to homicide. That's a pain that you just never get over, for real. So, you know, rest in peace to Ronald Thomas, and my condolences to all of his loved ones. I pray for everyone's healing involved. May his spirit live on with you forever. He'll never be forgotten.